very honored today to have four really experienced lawyers: Justice Harriet O'Neill, John Kinney, Phil Durst, and Mike Slack. And I'll say a little bit about them individually as we go along. First of all, I'd like to thank Jackson Walker for, as Lady Bird would say, providing the hall for us to do this, and the committee that put this together, again, Karen Burgess, Chris Phillips, Lisa Hobbs, Dirk Jordan, and Leslie Robinette, who's in Fort Worth, but her spirit is always out here guiding us and doing things. I'll kind of kick it off by saying we all have a lot of stories, and one of them I remember as a very young lawyer. I got sent over to try a criminal case, and Tom Blackwell was the district judge, and it was going to be a bench trial. Unfortunately, it was my firm who decided it was going to be a bench trial. It wasn't me, because throughout the trial, Blackwell would sit there and smile. You know, he's a former district attorney, so I kind of talked a little bit about where he's coming from. And every time I'd make an objection, he'd say, "Mr. Yankel, I'm going to take that objection under advisement." And we'd go on, and after 2 days of trial, we got down to the end, and I had it firmly fixed in my mind: you waived error if you didn't get a ruling on your objections. And he hadn't ruled on a single one of my objections, so I was all poised to come up and ask him to make a ruling. And before we argued to the jury, and after we had agreed on the court's charge, Judge Blackwell looked down and said, "Throughout the course of this trial, the defense has made numerous objections." Well, we didn't have a jury. Numerous objections to evidence that the state has sought to introduce. I've taken each of those objections under advisement, and I now rule on them. Each of the objections the defendants made is granted, and that evidence has not been considered by the court. On the remaining evidence, the court finds the defendant guilty. And you want to talk about figuring out how to make sure there wasn't any kind of appealable error. So that's the kind of things we try to do here. Our first speaker is going to be John Kinney, who I'm particularly close to, because John's the only one sitting up here that even approximates my age, and he actually told me tonight he's older than I am, which is a great thrill. John and I went to law school together. That's why I didn't think he was older than I was, and we graduated together in the same class. And we both kind of had a similar background. John was in the Marines, I was in the Marines, but John was in the Marines and got to have a trip across the water to Asia. By the time I was there, they were turning Vietnam into an army war, and I never got to make the trip. And I will tell you, I'm not disappointed for that, John. I'm glad you went. He tells me that he took the LSAT in an unair-conditioned 12 by 24 tent next to a helo landing pad outside of Da Nang. We were both licensed in 1969 after having gotten out of the University of Texas Law School, and he went to East Texas to practice, East Texas in the broadest sense of the word, including Houston. I'm going to tell one story on John and let him do it. John, like I, was doing about everything that came in the door, civil and criminal work, and one of the Houston judges appointed him to represent a criminal defendant who was not a particularly likable fellow. Fairly hard case, and John told the judge that he would be happy to take the appointment, but he really needs some help in it. And the judge said, "I think that's fine, Mr. Kinney, I agree with you. Do you have any suggestions on who I'll appoint as co-counsel?" And John said, "I'd like you to appoint Clifford Youngblood." Now, Cliff Youngblood, I sat next to a lot in law school. You can figure that out, Yankel Youngblood, because they see you in alphabetical order. And Clifford was just brilliant. He had had a career in the Air Force and then decided to go to law school, didn't enter law school until he was about 36, and he graduated very high in our class and was hired to go to Houston to do tax-exempt finance work for Vincent and Elkins, which is a rather rarefied job. And the judge tells John, he said, "Well, I don't believe, I know Mr. Youngblood." And John told him that Cliff Youngblood was the best criminal lawyer in the municipal law department at Vincent and Elkins. That's the point. So, John Kinney, my friend, come forward.
Cliff and I were fortunate enough to be able to plead that fellow real quickly. I won't give you the details, but it was heinous. I practiced in southeast Texas, in a little town called Woodville, 2,700 people, and one stoplight. The biggest building in the town was the courthouse, and the next biggest building in the town was the First Baptist Church. My wife and I were both from West Texas. We didn't know anybody in Woodville. We weren't members of the Baptist Church, which was an impediment, because that's the cornerstone of society in most of these towns, East Texas, and I think throughout the rural South. Woodville is 59 miles north of Beaumont. We were in Houston before we went to Beaumont, and my wife and I have asked one another many times, why in the hell did we go to Woodville? And my wife has come up with the best answer. She says that it was an overreaction to Houston. And I think that's pretty much on point. We stayed there 25 years, and as Judge Yeagle said, I practiced not just in Woodville. We would starve to death if we'd had to live off what you could make in a town like Woodville. 2,700 people, 14 or 15,000 people in the entire county. The biggest business in the county was the county and local government. So I had to spread out, and the area in which I spread myself was Beaumont to Carthage to Huntsville. And I was a personal injury lawyer. I did insurance defense. I guess you would call me an insurance defense lawyer if you characterize a lawyer by the number of particular type of case that he handles. Over time, I morphed into a plaintiff's lawyer, which a lot of defense lawyers do, I think. And I found that to be a whole lot more fun and a lot more remunerative too, by the way. I was a sole practitioner the whole 25 years I was there. We lived a short distance outside of town, and I traveled a lot. These little towns in southeast Texas, rural southeast Texas, are like a lot of towns, I think, in the rural South. There's still a lot of vestiges of the Jim Crow era in those places. And some of those vestiges are tangible, and some of them are intangible. The intangible vestiges of that era in our history, a poor era in our history, are the way that the races interact one with the other in their personal dealings. I won't give examples of that because it will take too much time, and Judge Yeagle will cut me off. Tangible, you find the tangible evidence in the courthouses. In a lot of the courthouses in that rural area, the jury rooms, you will find in the jury rooms, and that's true of the courthouse in Woodville, Texas. Dirk has seen it. 4 bathrooms and 2 water fountains in the same 12 by 14 jury room. The signs are gone, but the separate and the supposedly equal facilities are still there. Good help is hard to find in these little rural towns. You have to look hard and long to find somebody that can be of substantial help to you in your practice. And I think my advice and the advice of anybody else that is aware of the situation would advise you to, when you find one that's good and helpful and capable, you better hang on, because you might have a hell of a time finding another one. Another piece of advice for those of you that might go and try a case in one of these little rural towns. There are relationships in those towns that, unless you have lived there a very long time, unless you were born and raised there and went to school there, there are relationships, business, personal, and familial, that there's no way in the world that you could get at. My advice would be that you go and find a lawyer. It doesn't have to be a litigator. Find a lawyer in that little town, preferably who was born there, grew up there, has extensive family there. Hire that fellow to help you pick your jury. You'll avoid some real ugly surprises if you'll do that. After 25 years in East Texas, my wife and I decided that we would move to Austin because for the education of our 2 daughters. Our son, seated over here, was already pretty much through his education, but we had 2 daughters that wanted to get a better education than they were going to get in Woodville, Texas.
Yeah, better than me.
So we moved over here, and I didn't do anything for a couple of years, and then I went to work for a law firm here as a mentor and coach for some young litigators that they had in that law firm. I didn't know whether I would enjoy it or like it, but I discovered that it really was a pleasant, fun thing to do. But at this firm, Strasburger and Price, I was introduced to the big city and big law firm practice. I knew nothing about it when I went aboard there. But we didn't have rotating dockets in East Texas. And the judge you had was the judge you got at the kickoff. He was there for everything that you needed a judge for throughout the trial. Mike Slack made a remark the other day at a meeting we had about the fact that as he goes around, he sees a lot of the same lawyers at all of the places that he goes. Not entirely, of course, but a lot of them he sees are the same lawyers. That's true in my experience. And as I traveled around in East Texas, I saw essentially, not in every case, the same lawyers at every venue that I went to. That reminded me of something that we were told in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. We were told that 15 to 20% of you will actually see combat. The other 80% are there in some support function, some support category. I think that's the way it is with lawyers, that some 80% of the cases that actually go to trial, I believe, and I don't have any statistical data to support this opinion or belief, but my belief is that those 15 or 20% of the lawyers try 80% of the cases. And I assure you that those that try the cases on a regular basis will recognize at first telephone call a lawyer that does not. It's kind of like somebody that's been in infantry combat. When someone starts talking to them about it, you can tell that quick whether he has actually been there or he's just one of these guys with the big cap and the Navy SEALs and the Green Beret and all that stuff. I want to take a few minutes to tell you a couple of, I guess you'd call them war stories. They're not really war stories, but they're things that happened and things that I enjoyed very much when they did happen. I had a client who owned a nursing home, a 120-bed nursing home, and it had a lift station that was necessary to pump the effluent from that nursing home over an intervening hill to the wastewater treatment plant. The deal was that once the plant was up and operating, the city would take over the maintenance of that lift station, it's called. And they did. But what we discovered after the city had accepted responsibility was that the old folks would from time to time flush wash rags down the toilet. And the lift station consisted of two 1,500-gallon tanks, each of which had a 20 horsepower submersible pump inside that would pump the effluent vertically out of the sump into a horizontal pipe that then went over the hill to the water treatment plant. I went out there one day. I think I'd been taking a deposition. I had on a suit and tie like I do now, and the city crew was out there. It's a little bitty town. I knew the crew leader. He was a guy about 63 or 4 years old. His name's Pete Watts. And I saw him there, so I walked down and was talking to him while the city employees were disconnecting the horizontal from the vertical and getting ready with a boom truck that they had to lift the top off of this sump and expose the pump so they could pull the wash rag out of the impellers on that pump. I was talking to the crew chief who was watching, and he had his back to the lift station. I was facing over his shoulder. I could see the lift station, and I saw that the horizontal pipes had been disconnected and only the verticals were sticking up. And I also saw one of the city employees go over to a breaker box, and I guess, I don't know what he was thinking, but he might have been thinking he'd throw it, see if he could free that pump up without having to lift the whole thing out, dig those wash rags out of the impellers. He pushed it, and when he did, pump freed as you anticipated. It shot the effluent up into the air about 15 feet, and then it just mushroomed over like that, and it came down on everybody there.
What's that?
I don't know. My coat and my tie on, not a drop on me. And Pete Watts, this 65-year-old rural southern fella, said, "Ain't that just the way it always goes? The shit starts flying and the lawyer's the only one ain't hit." Another instance that I think was kind of funny, this old guy came into my office, and anybody that has tried a lawsuit involving a boundary line dispute knows to run like a turkey if someone comes in and wants you to get involved. Here comes this guy, and he's got on a pair of Walmart boots. I didn't know him. Had on a white straw hat, cowboy hat about that big, which he didn't bother to take off when he came into my office. And he's sitting there telling me that he had added a bedroom on his house, and that his neighbor was raising Cain, saying that he had built part of that bedroom over on his neighbor's property. And I explained to him patiently, I thought, how much it would cost and how much time it would take. It would involve surveyors and researching the deed records and on to try to determine the boundaries of this unplatted 5-acre subdivision. And he finally got the message, and he got up and left. And that was a tar baby that Burr Rabbit wasn't about to slap. That's my part of it. I didn't want anything to do with it. I saw him a few days or a few weeks later, and I asked him what had happened with his boundary line dispute. Had he talked to his neighbor like I had suggested he do, or what had happened? He said, "I've taken care of it myself." And I said, "What did you do?" He said, "I've taken to my damn chainsaw and I went out there and cut that bedroom off the side of my house and dragged it over on my property with my tractor." That's rural southern self-help. One more story, and I'll try to be quick about it. There is a lawyer, I think he's still alive, in Jasper, Texas. Some of y'all may know Jasper, Texas. His name is John Seal. John is a guy medium height, he's stocky built. He's probably 5 years older than I am, which puts him in his 80s, well into his 80s. And John is one of these people that he did, as far as I ever observed, he didn't have a sense of humor. He was an extremely intense fellow. And he was bald, except he had a horseshoe of hair around his head, like a lot of bald fellas do. But the most interesting to me thing about him is that John had a trigger hair temper. He would lose his temper at the drop of a hat, and when he did, he would turn purple. His head, all the way down to the back of the head. And he and I were trying a case. He was a plaintiff in a little town called Newton, over near the Louisiana border. And John called his first witness was his client. His client was a fellow named John Henry Posey. And Mr. Posey was a man of medium height, but he was heavy set. And he's on the stand, and it's obvious that he had never been on the stand before. He had never been the focal point of so much attention in his life. There was a jury in the box. And he was apprehensive, he was scared. And John was asking him questions. And he didn't get started very well, John didn't, until his client began to answer, the questions that were being asked. The judge and his court reporter they understood one another. Judge stopped John Seal, broke up his momentum, and he said, he explained, Mr. Posey, the court reporter's trying to take down what you say, and she can't take down and You need to answer yes or no. And so he proceeded, Mr. Seal. So he asked him a few more questions, and in almost no time, John Henry Mr. Posey is answering, The judge stops him again. And I could tell, because John was sitting right there, I could tell it was getting, I knew John. I knew it was getting under his hide. And the judge went through the rigmarole again with Mr. Posey and started again. And 2 questions in, Mr. Posey is answering, And when he did the third time, John Seal jumped up out of his chair and he yelled. He didn't speak in he yelled, "John Henry, answer yes or no." And when he did, John Henry looked like somebody had hit him with a cattle prod. He jumped and he said, "Yes or no?" The jury started laughing. And John didn't know what they were laughing about. And he jerked around at the jury, and I thought, well, now we're fixing to really see something. He recovered himself and made like he thought it was funny too, but I know John well enough to know he didn't think it was funny. Another time, John and I were trying a case in federal court in Beaumont. The judge was Hal Cobb. It was a jury trial, and it was the second day. John had to drive down to Beaumont from Jasper. I had to drive down to Beaumont from Woodville. We got there early. There was no one else in the courtroom except John and I and me. And John, we were each taking the stuff out of our briefcase and spreading it out on the table and getting ready to start. And I happened to look over, and John, who had on a dark suit, had one light brown shoe on and one black shoe. And I said, "John," I knew what I was doing. I knew I was going to. I said, "John, who dressed you this morning?" What are you talking about?" And I said, "Your shoes. You got one brown shoe and one black shoe." And he looked down and he didn't say anything to me, but he spent the rest of the day trying to keep one of his feet. Still alive, still there. Do I have time for one more?
No, one more.
I had a fellow in my office one day. This is what my wife said: "If you tell this one, don't tell it first, tell it last." He came into my office. I'd never seen him before. He was an older guy, 65, young looking to me now, but at that time he looked like an old guy. And he was skinny, and he had a 2 or 3 day growth beard on. His neck was all stringy, like you sometimes see skinny old men's necks do. Mine doesn't do that way. And this was another one, with no sense of humor whatsoever. He was strictly business. He was dressed in the uniform of the day, which in Southeast Texas is a pair of bib overalls and a long sleeve khaki shirt, buttoned up to here and buttoned down to there, with brogans, as they call them over there, boondockers, as they're called other places, on his feet. No fun about him, strictly business. And he was telling me about an accident that he had been in, and I asked him, who's your doctor? Well, I went to see my regular doctor. That was Dr. Smith. And I said, and he told me about Dr. Smith. And then I said, "Did you see any other doctors?" And he said, "Yeah, I seen that doctor that Dr. Smith sent me to." And I said, "And what was his name?" And this old guy looked at me kind of hard. He said, "I don't recollect his name. He's just somebody that Dr. Smith sent me to, and I don't remember his name." He said, "But he was a terrible big man. He had a finger on him like a hoe handle." Thank you very much.
Some of y'all might think it's really easy to round up these people and get together and get them to come in here and tell some stories, but none of them take direction very well. John Kinney was the only one that gave me any usable biographical information around. I've never known lawyers who are as shy to give me any information about him. Our next speaker is Phil Durst, and Phil falls into that category. So let me start out. This is what I got from him first. He wanted me to read this to you. So I'm going to read it verbatim. The next presenter has insisted, in italics, that I read the following statement. Wow, I don't usually like speaking extemporaneously, and I wish I had prepared something. Now I presume that's Phil talking. I know that Phil would want me to keep this introduction professional and not go into my true feelings, but I just can't. It makes me very emotional to know that someone as wonderful as Philip Durst exists in my life. I've said it, and I don't care who knows it, and I feel good about myself. I never think this is a bed of roses. I finally got a little information. You know, one of the things we really like to be able to show when we present lawyers that ostensibly have experience is that they actually went to law school and got a law license. Well, you know, what Phil wanted me to read didn't give you anything legibly. He was a lawyer. So I finally coaxed a little more out of him.